The words, "You're fired," were supposed to be the end of the story. They were meant to be a full stop. The final, smug exercise of a petty tyrant's power, delivered with the casual cruelty that had become his trademark. But for my boss, a man who thought laws were just annoying suggestions, they were just the beginning of his nightmare. A nightmare I had been carefully, quietly, and comprehensively documenting for almost a year. My name is Kevin. I was 34 years old at the time this all went down, living in a small, overpriced apartment in California, trying to pay my rent and figure out what I wanted to do with my life. My long-term plan did not involve a career in convenience store management, but for just shy of 1 year, that was my entire world. I was a clerk at a franchised 7-Eleven on a busy corner. This meant the store wasn't owned by the massive, polished corporation, but by an independent franchise, a guy I'll call Sam. Sam was a man whose IQ, I'm convinced, was probably somewhere in the low 80s. He was a small man with a big, unearned ego and a moral compass that had clearly been shattered into 1,000 tiny pieces and swept under a dirty counter. A typical day under Sam's reign was a masterclass in controlled misery. I'd arrive for my shift, and the tension in the air was thick enough to taste. The 1 or 2 employees on duty would be moving with the quiet, stressed-out precision of people trying to avoid attracting the attention of a predator. Sam would be in his glass-walled office in the back, a little fishbowl from which he could watch our every move. He wasn't a manager, he was a warden. The only person in that entire store who ever seemed relaxed was Tina, the head clerk, who was also his mistress. She made a shocking $15 an hour, more than double what the rest of us made, to stand behind the counter filing her nails, scrolling through her phone, and occasionally barking an order at someone who was actually working. She was untouchable, a constant, smirking reminder of the foundational corruption that defined the place. Sam treated the rest of us like something he'd scraped off the bottom of his shoe. His management style was a toxic cocktail of profound neglect and obsessive micromanagement. He'd ignore a major issue, like the broken freezer door that was costing him hundreds in electricity, for weeks on end. But he would materialize like a phantom to scream at you if you spent 30 extra seconds wiping down the coffee station because a customer had spilled some sugar. The laws that govern employment in the state of California were to him just a collection of amusing anecdotes. He broke every single one of them with a casual, almost gleeful impunity. Our store was a living museum of labor code violations. First and foremost, nobody ever got a lunch break. Ever. California labor law is crystal clear. If you work a shift longer than 5 hours, you are legally entitled to a 30-minute uninterrupted, off-the-clock meal break. We regularly worked 8, 9, sometimes 10-hour shifts during which the most we could hope for was a frantic, 30-second dash to the back room to chug a bottle of water before the bell on the front door chimed again. We were barely afforded 5-minute smoke breaks, which he would time with a stopwatch from his little office, tapping on the glass with a pen if you took a second too long. And we were absolutely forbidden from eating anything while on the clock, even a handful of peanuts from a bag we had paid for, lest we be accused of stealing time from his precious, grimy empire. He knew the law. He just didn't care. In California, when an employer fails to provide that meal break, they're legally obligated to pay the employee for an extra hour's wages for each day the break was missed, and that hour counts toward overtime. We, of course, never saw a dime of that. His wage theft was even more blatant when it came to our hours. He did payroll himself, a chaotic process involving a calculator, a stained notepad, and what I can only assume was a deep-seated hatred for basic arithmetic. He wouldn't actually go by the times we clocked in and out on the register's POS system. He went by the schedule he wrote on a stained piece of paper and taped to the wall each week. So if it got slammed on a Friday night, and he'd ask you to stay an extra hour or two to help out, you were doing it for free. You were donating your labor to him. Those hours would simply vanish into the ether, never appearing on your pay stub. He was literally stealing our time, our lives, one unpaid hour at a time. His scheduling was a weapon of chaos. The schedule was subject to change whenever the whim struck him, with no notice whatsoever. There were several times he wrote me up for being late, because he would come in midday, scribble a change on the schedule with a Sharpie, and then expect me to telepathically know that my 4 p.m. shift had been changed to a 2 p.m. shift. It was a no-win situation, a system perfectly designed to keep us insecure and constantly afraid of losing our jobs. But the worst part, the part that turned my stomach and transformed my low-level resentment into a cold, hard resolve, was the food. This is where his crimes went from merely illegal to outright dangerous. Whenever we would do our nightly rounds and pull expired food from the shelves, sandwiches, yogurt, milk, hot dogs, we'd log it on a sheet and put it in a specific waste bin in the back room for disposal. But the next day, the items would be gone from the bin. We'd come out to the floor, and there they would be, back on the shelves, resurrected like little edible zombies. He had a label maker in his office, and every morning, before we arrived, he would go through the waste bin, take out the expired food, print new expiration date stickers, and carefully paste them over the old ones. He would then put the potentially spoiled, bacteria-ridden food back out for sale. He was playing a dangerous game of Russian roulette with the public's health, all to save a few dollars on inventory loss. I'll never forget the moment it became truly real for me. It was a sweltering afternoon. A regular customer, a construction worker named Dave, who came in every single day for lunch, was about to buy one of the hot dogs from the roller grill. He was a good guy, always had a smile and a kind word. But I knew for a fact that those hot dogs were 3 days past their sell-by date. I had thrown them in the bin myself 2 nights prior. As Dave reached for the tongs, I had a full-blown moral crisis, right there in front of the Slurpee machine. I saw in my mind's eye this good-natured guy getting violently ill, missing work, losing pay, all because Sam wanted to save 50 cents on a hot dog. I couldn't let it happen. Thinking fast, I grabbed a big gulp cup and tripped as I walked past him, sending a torrent of cherry-flavored soda splashing all over the counter and the side of the hot dog machine. "Oh man, I am so sorry, Dave," I exclaimed, my heart pounding. "Let me clean that up. It's going to be a minute. This machine is probably shorted out now from the liquid. It's a safety hazard." It was a mess, but it worked. I got to clean the machine, which involved disposing of the ancient hot dogs in the outside dumpster this time, where Sam couldn't get to them. Sam screamed at me for being clumsy and took the cost of the spilled soda out of my paycheck. I didn't care. I had made my decision. I could not be a party to his crimes anymore. My resolve hardened into a quiet, methodical plan. I started my own secret investigation. It became a ritual of defiance. After every week, just before he took the old schedule down, I would take out my phone when he was in his office, on the phone with Tina, and I'd snap a quick, clear photo of it. The fear of him walking out and catching me was immense. My hands would be shaking. And every 2 weeks, when I got my pay stub, I wouldn't just cash it. I would go home, lay it next to the photos of the corresponding schedules, and with a red pen, I would circle every discrepancy, every unpaid hour of overtime, every missed meal penalty. I created a spreadsheet on my home computer. I was building a case, brick by brick. I had a thick manila folder hidden in the back of my closet, filled with undeniable, black and white proof of his systematic theft. After the hot dog incident, I knew I had to escalate. That night, on my day off, I made 2 calls. First, I called the county health department and filed a detailed, anonymous report. I didn't just say he was selling expired food. I explained his entire relabeling scheme. I gave them specific examples, dates, times. I told them to look for the double stickers. Then, I went on the 7-Eleven corporate website. Using a burner email address I created at the public library, I sent a long, detailed message to their franchise oversight department. I told them everything: the wage theft, the lack of breaks, the scheduling abuses, and I spent 2 paragraphs describing, in nauseating detail, the expired food scheme. I hit send and felt a wave of both pure terror and profound relief wash over me. I had lit the fuse. Now I just had to wait for the explosion. Word got back to him with the speed of a lit match hitting a trail of gasoline. The very next day, a corporate field manager made a surprise visit. I wasn't there, but my coworker, Sarah, who was a friend, called me that evening to tell me all about it. She said it was a bloodbath. He was a stone-faced man in a crisp suit who didn't say much, but his eyes missed nothing. He was in the store for hours, going through the shelves with a clipboard, scanning items, checking dates in the back. Sarah said Sam was sweating bullets, following him around like a pathetic, nervous puppy, trying to explain things away with a thick accent and a thicker layer of lies. The field manager left without a word. The silence was more terrifying than shouting would have been. When I went in for my next shift, the trap was set. Sam called me into his grimy little office. He didn't even tell me to sit down. He was standing behind his desk, holding a single piece of paper, a smug, triumphant smirk playing on his lips. He thought he had figured it all out. "Kevin," he said, his voice dripping with a false, syrupy sincerity that made my skin crawl. "We've received a complaint. A customer said you were rude to them last week." I stared at him, my face a blank mask of calm. I had never had a customer complain in my life. I was one of his best employees when it came to customer service, a fact he knew all too well. This was a complete fabrication. "I don't know about you," he continued, savoring the moment, "but I've never worked anywhere that has a one-strike policy. Unfortunately, this complaint is very, very serious. We can't have employees disrespecting our valued customers. I'm going to have to let you go." Effective immediately, I could see the victory in his eyes. He thought he was so clever. He couldn't fire me for reporting him. That was a legal retaliation, and even he knew that. So he had invented a phantom complaint, a perfect pretext. He fired me on the spot. He thought he had won. He thought he had silenced the problem. He had no idea the real trouble was just beginning. He had just made the single biggest mistake of his miserable life. He had set me free. The same day he fired me. I didn't go home and feel sorry for myself. I went home, showered, put on a clean shirt, and took my thick manila folder down to the State Labor Board office. I walked in, asked for the wage complaint forms, and sat in their drab waiting room, feeling a sense of calm purpose I hadn't felt in a year. The fear was gone, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. I spent the entire weekend filling out the mountain of paperwork. It was a chore, but I had all my evidence perfectly organized. I cross-referenced every single shift on the schedules with the hours on my pay stubs. I calculated every single missed meal break, every hour of unpaid overtime, every phantom shift change he'd used to cheat me. The final number was staggering. I attached copies of all my evidence, the photos of his handwritten schedules, the fraudulent pay stubs, my own detailed notes, and turned it all in on Monday morning. About a month later, I got a call from the labor board agent assigned to my case. She was a no-nonsense woman named Mrs. Davies. She sounded tired but impressed. "Mr. Rodriguez," she said, "I've reviewed your file. This is one of the most well-documented cases I've seen in years. You've made my job very easy." She told me Sam had received her letter and had, predictably, denied everything, calling me a disgruntled, lying ex-employee. But when she presented him with the folder full of photocopies of his own handwritten schedules and the corresponding, fraudulent pay stubs, he had no defense. The evidence was irrefutable. His own sloppy handwriting had been his undoing. My old boss wasn't so smug when he had to write a personal check to me for $2,600. That check, I later found out from my friend Sarah, arrived in his mailbox the very same week he received a certified letter from the county health department, informing him of a hefty 5-figure fine for his repeated, willful food safety violations. But I wasn't done. The money was nice. It was my money that he had stolen, after all. But it was never about the money. It was about the principle. It was about the fact that he thought he could get away with firing me for doing the right thing, for protecting people. So I went back to the labor board. I filed another claim, this time under the state's powerful whistleblower protection clause. Mrs. Davies walked me through it. It's highly illegal to fire an employee in retaliation for reporting illegal activity to a government or law enforcement agency. The remedy, if the board rules in your favor, is forced rehiring. Not only that, but the employer has to pay you for all of your lost wages for the entire period you were illegally terminated. That case is still pending, but my old coworkers have told me he is terrified. He's had to hire an expensive lawyer. He's losing sleep. He's finally feeling the pressure that he put on us for so long. Was the revenge sweet? Seeing the look on his face when he had to hand over that check was, I admit, pretty damn awesome. But that's not why I did it. I did it because that sack of crap was going to keep on exploiting his employees. Good people, just trying to pay their bills. He was going to keep on endangering his customers just to make an extra buck. He was going to keep on being a worthless human being, and I felt like unless I did something, he was going to get away with it forever. I simply could not abide by the idea of him suffering no consequences for his actions. The best part of all of this? The part that makes me smile every time I think about it? My old coworkers, the ones still trapped there, get their lunch breaks now. Every single day, Sam has to hire extra coverage, and it's costing him money. And the expiration dates on the sandwiches are, for the first time ever, the real ones. Now I ask, would you do the same? Would you allow someone destroy people's lives just to save your job? Would you do it knowing that the law got you covered? I would like to know if anyone would have done it any different.